Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for joining me today. Hey, we're gonna go through a couple different projects on my truck. We're gonna be working on a tailgate, filling in some holes. Gonna be working on a door jamb. We're gonna be filling in some space to actually bring the actual gap down. You're gonna see a few other just welding and grinding things. Hey, listen guys, if you see something new and exciting to you, I'm pumped. That's what I'm hoping to do. Maybe even you might even get excited saying, hey man, if this guy can do it, I can do it. Now, if you know something and you can share information with me about what I'm doing wrong, because I'm sure there's something, I know there is. I always learn the hard way. But occasionally I get lucky and people share knowledge with me, and so I can expedite or skip some steps sometimes. So please feel free to share. Anyways, enjoy this episode, and when we get done with this, we're going to be moving on to some new and exciting parts with the hood and some side projects as well. So catch you soon. Thanks, guys. All right, let's do a quick introduction of the truck. Well, obviously here you're only seeing a small portion of it in the camera. This truck is a 1967 Ford F250 Camper Special. Originally had some extra fuel tanks. There were 2 extra tanks. There's a 3rd tank as well in the truck, in the bed, and then there was also a gas tank in the cab of the truck, which has been removed because I hate the smell of gas in my car. Here is the hood, which is in horrific condition. I am really trying to figure out if I want to take the time to work with this or just look for a replacement. I'm sorry I don't have a lot of room in my shop, so all of these shots might be pretty tight. Here is the bench seat. We're going to need to get that reupholstered. I hope that we can actually salvage this windshield. And as you can see, I have sanded down the entire body looking for any traces of rust. Everywhere that I found rust, I have replaced pieces, like for example right down there, and more grinding to do on that. I actually took the entire rain gutter and cut it, replaced it back onto the truck. So as you can see now, it's got that sort of styly little lip, which I think looks kind of cool. It's not perfect. I'm not a great welder yet, but I'm excited about it. Cool part about this is I had no intention of ripping everything out of the cab, but yet here we are. Got to replace the back window. There used to be a shell on the back of this that everybody hated. I loved it. But yet here it is gone. But once I took it off, I fell in love with the truck because then somehow magically it became mine. And here's a quick little peek at the engine bay. I'll be showing you guys more of that later. You like that custom painted radiator fan? Yeah, that was mine. All right guys, we're gonna do a little bit of grinding here. This is a patch that I put in probably like 2 weeks ago. And I've got a bunch of old trim holes. I would always suggest hearing protection. We're getting there. Let me give you a little shot of that. One thing I might suggest is a lot like what I did when I worked with wood. Less pressure, just getting the sense of where the edge is hitting, how deep and how hard I can press. I know one thing for a fact: once you take material off, it's much harder to put it back on. So one thing I would suggest is, as you're doing your welding, keeping in mind, this is one thing I've learned, is the cleaner, the smaller, the better my welds are, the less difficulty it is taking it off and grinding it. But when I'm grinding, I'm being very thoughtful and careful not to push into the actual metal, or really just focusing on the edge of the grinder. And this one I have a different pad, not a normal one, but with this is to just make sure that I am really focusing just on the weld. And then when I get down through the weld and I know that I'm getting close to the body of the car or the replacement metal, is instead of being really hard, like on edge like this, I try to flatten it out. So that way, instead of I'm trying to figure out how to adjust this. So instead of being really hard like this, I take it more like this, so I can fan it out, feather it, so to speak. Yeah, there you go. All right, here's an example of one of the holes that the guy before me put in the truck to secure the cab. As you can see, I've already welded that in. I had a nice piece of copper in the back underneath here, supporting it as I welded it in. Now we're going to grind that off. Safety first. So I found that when I'm starting with the sanding, I start with this sort of flat first, just to really get the high part down. As I notice that I'm getting closer to the actual metal, that's when I start tipping it up and getting it more on the edge, just so that I stay only on the weld. Ooh, that one's nice. You can't even tell there was a hole there. Almost makes me feel like I know what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm going to subject myself to a little bit of criticism, I'm sure, about my welding skills and techniques, but that's okay. So what you're looking at here, this is a whole panel that I had to actually cut out. It was rust all the way up through here. When I took the rain gutter off, I was able to actually cut this piece out, reattach it to the existing door jamb underneath. So it wasn't too big of a deal, and then I replaced the rain gutter back on top of it. So these were just a bunch of cleanup welds. I'm going to see how that looks. I'm just trying to make it as clean and as smooth as I can. One of the difficulties with the old trucks, like especially right up over here, is some of the material as I was welding into the new material was blowing out the old thinned out, rusted out areas that I didn't catch or see. So I had a few areas where I have to do some what I would call booger welds. So we're gonna grind this down and see what it looks like. Alright, so let's take a look at what I did here. Again, I'm not a professional, okay, but let's see how I did. Okay, so I'm actually pretty satisfied with the way that all came out. I know it's not perfect up in there, but I think it's gonna be a good start. Here you can probably see I have a bunch of little marks. This is where I'm going to add some more weld so that I can fill in for this gap right here. I don't want to have it. This is an area that when I was actually cutting off the drip mold, I got a little bit crazy with the wheel and cut off a little bit more of the actual drip mold than I wanted. So there's basically right up in here, it's just a thin spot. So I'm going to add some weld to that, and I'll show you that. Alright, so we're going to do some welding here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some material to the bottom of this. Obviously I want to get the door out of my way. This is my helmet. I just want to share. Actually, I painted it all up myself. For anyone who understands astrology, I'm a Pisces, so these are all the different symbols for the Pisces. We're going to go ahead and zap some shots up in there. Hopefully it goes well. One of the things that I want to share with you guys, my experience, is that I've learned, and starting from scratch and doing this pretty much completely self-taught. Also, I say self-taught using YouTube as my teacher. Number one thing for me is I always make sure that my tip is clean. I just keep one of these brushes. I don't even remember. I probably got this at Home Depot or something. And I just tamp it in so that I get all the little stuff out from inside. Pretty much after every other weld. And then I also learned from one of the guys on one of the shows on YouTube that cut the tip so that it's a fresh end all the time. That helps because it's less energy getting to the end, where if you left that little ball on there, it takes more energy to warm it up. So here we go. So this is good to see. So you see that? It shot up into a space up in between where my piece was and the metal. and sometimes that happens to me. I just keep going. So I don't know if you guys can see this. There's some gunk in the tip there. So I just tamp it a little bit like that, making sure that I'm not pressing making sure that I'm not pressing the button as I'm doing that. And now you can see super clean. Woo. Actually, this is a good example. Let's see if I put it like this, maybe you can see the ball right there. That's the part that I'm cutting off every time. So, looks good so far. I can definitely see it dropping that edge down for me like I wanted. I'm going to give this a second, my machine, so that it will stay cool, but I can clearly see right here is an area that I need to add some more. So I'll go ahead and do that. Funny story, I didn't know that my gas was not on when I first bought this. And I did a lot of welding around the truck, and I told you I was self-taught, so I did a lot of welding around the truck without the gas on, which didn't work very well, but I still did it. And then once I turned the gas on, I was like, holy moly, look how beautiful, how clean that is. And it's actually easier to weld. The one thing I noticed without the gas, boy, it gets really porous. It looks really crappy, and then I had to go back through and I had to go and fill in a bunch. So it's good to check that, I guess, every now and then, make sure it's on. Certainly if you're brand new, make sure that it is on. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but it's the way I'm doing it so that I get it done. I'm going to show you guys in a second what it looks like, alright? Alright guys, I don't know if you can hear it. I just wanted to point out I do have my fan blowing at all time when I'm welding. So this is what it looks like so far. So I've got a bunch of booger welds on there to sort of fill in that gap. And found a couple places on the top there where I wanted to add a couple extra zaps. So I'm going to go ahead and grind all that off, and I'll show it to you then. Alright, here we go. A nice little close-up. So you can kind of see where some of it is filled in there. I mean, yeah, it's not perfect, but I think that I can live with that. Here's the door closed. So now we can see that there's a much more even gap across the door there. Couple bits of shiny bits up there. Hey guys, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna fill this hole that I showed you earlier. This is one of the cool little pieces of equipment that I picked up that I never owned before. I went ahead and spent some money on a good American made dollies and hammers from Martin, and love them. I don't know if there's better ones out there, but I love it. What I'm doing is I'm just filling in the bottom. I want to get it so that when I hammer down, it's a perfectly solid surface. That'll help it flatten out the piece so here where it pulled up. So we'll see how this goes. And you'll hear the difference too once it gets flat. It goes from kind of a ping, 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 and then it goes to like bong, 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 like that. So now I've got a nice flat surface there. And I've got 3 more. We're going to go do those right now. Alright guys, here's a quick tech tip that I got from watching a guy on YouTube. One of the things that I saw, he was talking about welding wouldn't stick to copper, especially when like filling holes in and such. And I looked around my house and I was thinking, I don't have any copper. And then I remembered I used to do some plumbing for a remodeling company, and I found some of these, which are just copper tube couplings. And what I did is I just took my hammer and I beat it down into a nice flat piece of copper. So that's what I've been using on all of the different holes that I've been filling on this truck. So here's the piece that I beat down, my trusty magnet. I find it kind of helps when I sort of line it up. What I like to do is try to get just a corner of the magnet to hold the piece in. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the location, the curves, and all that. So now we've got that open, ready to go. So let's take a look at that. Okay, next time you see that, it'll be all ground down. I'll show that to you in a second. Do a little grinding. I think that looks pretty good. Let me show you. Sorry about the jiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I'm not sure where the hole was originally. I think it was right here. So, pretty good. And that's filling a hole, grinding it down. The next step is going to be priming and painting. Alright, we're going to fill in a couple more trim holes that I have on the tailgate. I've already got my piece of copper behind there. And let's do it. Got a little unusual piece right here, little spot on both ends of the tailgate where there's a curve. So I'm going to actually take one of my pieces of copper and form it to that little bit of a shape so I can get it. Alright, so I've got a little piece of copper here. Already just smashed it. It was just a little coupling. And as you can see, I'm beginning to make that curved piece. What I did was I actually just set it right here in between my wood block. Got my little buddy here, and just hit it. So this is the area right here that I was talking about. Here's my piece to try to match it pretty freaking close. Alright guys, we've already got the copper in place here with the magnet. I'll probably hold it on a little bit. The fit looks good in there with the curve, so we'll get to welding. This hole right here on the curve is, let's see, there's 3 different plies kind of coming together, and it's pretty deep, so we'll see. I'm just going to try to give it a little zap and fill in a little bit here and there and see what we come up with. Well, we'll see. Let's take a peek here. So not too bad. Clearly more to fill in there. There's one. There's the other one, and that one. So I think I'm gonna do the next set over there the same way. And I'll grind these down and show those to you guys in a minute after I do a couple more fillings right there. Alright, let's take a look at those 4 holes. Not thrilled with how that one came out, but that's part of that is those layers, so I'm gonna figure that out. That one came out pretty good. Where's this one? There, it's somewhere right there. And that one up there. Alright, let's take a quick peek at the hole that we're gonna work on, or not. So big blob, but whatever. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you can teach me something. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, please like it, tell your friends. There's going to be some more projects coming on. It's not always going to be just about the work truck. There's other things that I do, some wood projects, and then just some general things. But the couple upcoming projects we've got that are going to be welding related, I'm going to be building my own manual press so that I can actually bend some sheet metal for the hood, and then I'm also going to be doing the actual work on the hood, so we'll show that. I'm really excited, guys. I feel like I'm getting really close to the tail end of the body work on this truck, or the metal work on this truck, which means I'll be able to move over to getting the filler in and the Bondo and smoothing it out. The great part is There's only a handful of dings that I'm gonna leave them because I think it tells a story about the truck, and that's my opinion on it. So, but other than that, we're feeling like I'm in the home stretch. So I'm like this far away from buying the paint. Anyways, we'll keep you posted on that. Thanks again for tuning in. Subscribe, like it, and we'll catch you on the next episode.